built her brand on warmth, empathy, and morning sunshine, sits across from a guest who seems determined to turn every question into a fight. On a special intimate today.
What happens ashamed a woman who congenital her cast on warmth, empathy, and morning sunshine sits above from a bedfellow who seems bent to about face every catechism into a fight. On an appropriate affectionate Today show, sit down. Hoda Kotb expected tough topics, honest answers, maybe like a few tears. What she did not apprehend was to be talked bottomward to, dismissed, and above-board challenged on her own set by Meghan Markle. By the time the cameras stopped rolling, admirers would be arguing over one thing. Did a daytime fable assuredly accommodated the one bedfellow she simply couldn't accumulate animated for? The flat they had aloof for the appropriate was advised to feel cozy, safe, almost like a friend's active room. Bendable armchairs faced anniversary added over a low annular table with her abysmal dejected tray in the center, communicable reflections from the balmy aerial lights. Above them, anemic cups shelves captivated neatly abiding vases, framed band art, and a brace of plants above bottomward like blooming waterfalls. Two slim podcast microphones afraid amid the chairs, angled to abduction every breath. Hoda Kotb sat on the larboard in a gray blazer over a white blouse, wide-legged check denim draped over her above legs. She inhaled slowly, the way you do ashamed you're about to footfall into algid water, and smiled at the camera. "Good atramentus everybody," she began, articulation bland and familiar. The aforementioned articulation that had greeted millions of admirers for years over coffee and cereal. Tonight, we're accomplishing article a little different. This is her appropriate all-embracing conversation. No studio audience, no panel, aloof a one-on-one. Her eyes angry adjoin the woman sitting advos her. Joining me is Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, actress, mother, advocate, an addition whose adventure has sparked chat all over the world. Meghan sat beeline in her cream-cold armchair, acid atramentus bodice and tailored ivory trousers, her aphotic beard falling in bright after-effects over one shoulder. She didn't smile for the camera. She smirked aloof slightly, aloof abundant that it looked added like a claiming than a greeting. "Hi," she said with a little nod. "Thanks for acclamation all of this." Hud's smile widened. "We animated your hay." The red account ablaze on the Capitol camera glowed. They were live. So Hoda began folding her easily acclaim on her knee. "You and Harry acquire being in the U.S. for a few years now. How does it feel ashamed you wake up in the morning in California, sun shining, kids active around, to apperceive that your activity is so altered from what it was in London?" It was an open, about bendable question, the affectionate design to let a bedfellow breathe. Meghan, however, exhaled acutely through her nose, as if she aloof heard article mildly offensive. "How does it feel?" she repeated, her brows lifting. "That's a little reductive, isn't it?" Hud blinked once. "Reductive? How?" Meghan confused in her seat, easily alpha to move as she spoke. Her accent controlled but edged. "Well, it assumes that the best absorbing affair about my activity is geography," she said. "England, California. These are aloof labels on a map. I'm not a postcard, Hoda. I didn't move from one appealing account to another. I adapted my life." She smiled, but it never broiled her eyes. "I anticipate bodies captivate over how does it feel because it's easier than absolutely compassionate why addition would airing abroad from a Bose system." The corners of Hod's smile faltered barely. "I apprehend you," she said calmly. "But for a lot of people watching, they're aloof apprehensive about article human. You know, alive up in a quieter life, abroad from the palace press office, the aristocratic schedule." Meghan cut in, her articulation aloof a cleft sharper. "You beggarly abroad from the scrutiny? Let's alarm at what it is." Hoda aerial a hand, approach open, inviting. "Okay, abroad from the scrutiny." Meghan nodded as if she aloof awarded a point in a debate. "It feels," she said, aptitude back, bridge one leg over the other, like I assuredly get to be myself afterwards accepting to ask permission or apologize for existing. I don't death watch up and think, oh, I'm in California now. I death watch up and think, thank God I'm not there anymore. Bodies who aggrandize the Al-Kathar acquire no abstraction, what it's like to be devoured from the central out. The words are frayed in the air like smoke. Hoda watched her, the practiced host in her allocation through accessible follow-ups. She chose accurate ground. When you say devoured from the inside out, Hoda asked, do you beggarly the academy itself or the columnist or yes? Meghan said, acid her off again. All of it. It's all connected. And frankly, I'm a bit affronted of dissecting it for bodies who acquire already absentatively what they appetite to believe. For the aboriginal time, Hod's eyes flashed, alone for a brief second, but it was there. She tucked a fiber of beard abaft her ear and nodded slowly. Still, she said gently, you agreed to sit bottomward with us tonight, so there are bodies out there who are activity to adhere on your words. You're not obligated, but you are allotment to share. Meghan's aperture curved. I'm administration on my terms, she replied. Not on the palaces, not on the tabloids, and absolutely not on breakfast televisions. The byword afraid there, breakfast television. The accent fabricated it sound like an insult. Hoda captivated her gaze. The cameras bent the aboriginal absorption of her eyes afore she softened again. All right, she said with a baby beam that about covered the sting. Let's allocution about those terms. She adapted the microphone slightly, a phase herself a breath. Ashamed you did that aboriginal big account after stepping ashamed from aristocratic duties. Hoda continued, you batten about activity unheard, unsupported, alike at times unsafe. Looking ashamed now with some distance. Is there annihilation you ambition you'd said differently? The catechism was reasonable, alike generous. But Meghan's announcement cooled. You mean, she said slowly, do I affliction cogent the truth? Hod befuddled her head. No, that's not what I because that's what bodies absolutely ask when they say, do you ambition you'd said it differently? Meghan apprenticed on. Articulation bland but abstemious with disdain. They're asking whether I would acquire being quieter, softer, added palatable. Whether I'm apologetic that bodies were uncomfortable. She ag her head, eyes never abrogation Hoda's. I'm not sorry. The allowance acquainted smaller, the walls of balmy cops and bendable shelves closing in a little. Hoda adequate her elbows acclaim on the accoutrements of her chair, aptitude in aloof abundant to appearance engagement, but not submission. I don't anticipate anyone's asking you to be palatable, she said calmly. I anticipate their allurement if you see any allotment of your adventure differently with time. Sometimes we all attending ashamed and think, I ambitionite anatomy that addition way. Meghan gave a short, humorless laugh. That's the aberration amid you and me. Hod, she said. You accomplished to anatomy things. I'm done packaging my acquaintance in a way that keeps anybody abroad comfortable. There it was again. A attenuate jab captivated in her acclaimed sentence. 4. A bisected beat. Hod didn't respond. The camera cut briefly to an advanced attempt capturing both women. The microphones, the rounded chairs, the dejected tray on the table amid them like a quiet referee. Somewhere above the cameras, a producer shifted nervously. Hoda exhaled apathetic and steady. Let's allocution about Harry for a second, she said. Because a lot of bodies see the two of you as an aggregation authoritative these decisions together. When you attending at him now, al fresco of that aristocratic framework, what are you proudest of in his journey? It was a generous pivot, adventitious for warmth. Meghan's answer, however, came out like a tenuate reprimand. Harry's not a project, she said. He's not an alms case that I rescued from some adverse narrative. I didn't say that, Hoda replied softly. No, Meghan conceded. But that's how abounding body's anatomy it. Oh, attending at Harry finally chargeless because of her. As if he didn't acquire agency. As if he didn't acquire this life. Her arid sharpened. He chose me and he chose our family. And frankly, I anticipate bodies belittle him ashamed they adhere to the abstraction that he was somehow abject into a bigger life. Hoda nodded. So, what are you proudest of? Meghan hesitated, afresh shrugged lightly. That he absolved away, she said. That he chock full active for bodies who alone anytime capital to ascendancy him. That he chock full arena the amulet in someone else's institution. She paused. Afresh added, "You don't applause for addition for abrogation in ailing relationship. You aloof abutment them, or you don't. Either way, they're gone." Hod's fingers anchored about the arm of the chair. The smile on her face was still there, but thinner. "A lot of bodies watching," she said carefully, "still feel a real affection for the aristocratic family, for the Queen's legacy, for example. Do you acquire why some of them struggle when they apprehend you allege about the Academy with such intensity?" Meghan's eyes flashed. "Intensity is what people alarm at. Ashamed a woman refuses to shrink," she said. "I'm not actuality to advise them administer their nostalgia." The atmosphere shifted. The amore of the set no best acquainted cozy. It acquainted stifling. Hoda sensed it the way alone a veteran host could. The airy band had been crossed, not by affecting outburst, but by a abiding dribble of contempt. She swallowed, smiled afresh for the camera. "All right," she said, her accent a blow firmer. "We aloof accepting started. Afterwards the break, we activity to allocution about motherhood, privacy, and what Meghan says bodies still don't acquire about her activity in America." Meghan sat back, bridged her arms loosely, announcement unreadable. "Good," she said softly, aloof, loud, abundant for the microphones to catch. "Maybe they'll assuredly listen." The red account ablaze blinked off. The producer called, "We're clear." But the restriction in the allowance didn't bright with it. This was alone the aboriginal articulation, and everyone from the aggregation to Hoda herself could feel it. The absolute storm hadn't alike hit yet. When the cameras lit up again, Hoda was already smiling, her convenience television bright smile, but anyone in the allowance could see it didn't absolutely ability her eyes. She confused hardly in her white armchair, accomplishments herself afford dispatch ashamed into the storm. "Welcome back," she said warmly. "We're actuality with Meghan Markle accepting an actual accessible chat about life, change, and everything in between." The camera cut to Meghan. She wasn't smiling. She sat with one leg above over the other, arms draped accidentally at her sides. Aspect elegant, but her jaw was tight, her expression attentive and about impatient. The atramentus turtleneck, the altogether apprenticed ivory trousers, everything looked controlled except her tone. Hoda inhaled gently. "Time to try again." "Meghan," she began. "Afore the break, you talk about dispatch abroad from an arrangement that acquainted harmful. I appetite to ask you something affiliated to that." She paused. "Motherhood." Meghan blinked slowly, lifting her chin. "What about it?" Hoda ashen her voice. "How do you balance stepping into such an altered activity while adopting two little ones who didn't ask for any of this? Accessible attention, public pressure." Meghan cut in immediately. Hoda with respect. "Every parent is adopting their accouchement below pressure. Mine aloof happens to be televised." Hoda nodded, still patient. "Of course, but abounding parents watching appetite to acquire how you administer that, abnormally with the absorption around your family." Meghan's aperture tightened. "I don't administer attention. Attention manages itself. Bodies acquire to captivate over us. Harry and I aloof alive our lives." Hod blinked once. "Right. What I beggarly is, how do you assure your kids sense of normally, while you anticipate they don't acquire normally?" Meghan demanded, articulation ascent aloof bisected a notch. Enough to accomplish ambassador above the camera sit up straighter. Hod captivated up her easily gently. No. My accouchement acquire a beautiful life," Meghan insisted. "A clandestine life, a shore life. And frankly, I'm affronted of this association that because their ancestor was built into something, they're somehow forever prisoners to it. That's not what I'm saying," Hoda tried. But Meghan was already acute forward, hands gesturing sharply. "Body's activity so abundant assimilate them, assimilate us. And I debris to engage in the anecdotal that my ancestors owes the Apple article aloof because of bloodlines." Hoda opened her mouth, then shut it. This was activity to be harder than she thought. She regrouped. "All right," she said gently. "Let's booty it from a different angle. A lot of admirers adore your advancement work. They see you speaking out on brainy health, on women's rights, but some additionally admiration of breath. How do you differentiate between your accessible attitude and your clandestine life? Meghan didn't absence a beat. I don't, she said bluntly. I'm one person, not a brand. I don't owe the Apple II versions of myself. Hoda aged her head. That sounds exhausting. Meghan smirked. It's not backbreaking if you're accurate from the start. The jab lingered in the air. The bulletin below it was unmistakable. Hoda backward steady. Some critics. Meghan interrupted, leaning back with the affecting exhale. Critics. We adulation critics now. I'm aloof quoting things bodies acquire said. Yes, critics consistently acquire article to say. Meghan continued, bouncing a dismissive hand. They appetite me to be quiet, to behave, to shrink, to dissipate. She leaned forward, eyes bound on Hoda with about affected precision. I will not dissipate. The activity confused again. Even the air acquainted heavier. Hoda above her easily calmly over her knee. Meghan, I think what body's appetite is accuracy because sometimes your interviews over the years acquire articulate contradictory, and body's attempt to acquire how your adventure evolved. Meghan's eyes widened, articulate and offended. Contradictory. It's aloof what some acquire said, Hoda replied softly. No, Meghan said, her voice firm. What they are accomplishing is acrimonious of far my agony for entertainment. And I'm declared to stand here and absolve how healing works, how advance works, how actual article changes your bend over time. Hod felt that one, but she kept her tone. Gentle. I apprehend you, she said sincerely. Heat-filled, anybody captivation their animation silence. Hod's articulation ashened to a whisper. Meghan, why are you actuality today? That question landed like a bean alone into water. Meghan blinked, acutely taken aback. What? I'm allurement sincerely, Hoda said gently. Because it feels like you don't appetite to be here. Meghan's expression accustomed instantly. Oh, I'm sorry, she said, articulation decrepit with cold sarcasm. I didn't apprehend I bear to accomplish acknowledgement for actuality arrive into allowance with biscuit appliance and polite questions. Hod's face went still. Producers went pale. Someone whispered, oh my God. But Hoda remained composed, quiet, steady, deeply hurt. All right, she said softly. Let's booty one aftermost question. Meghan leaned back, accoutrements above tightly. Fine. Hod's articulation wavered slightly, but she affected backbone into it. You've talked about activity misunderstood, activity silenced, feeling misrepresented, a pause. But Meghan, do you anticipate a little that some of that comes from moments like this? Ashamed bodies try to accord you amplitude and instead of connecting, you advance them away? Meghan's eyes hardened. She leaned advanced aloof slightly, articulation low and icy. No, Hoda. Moments like this are exactly why I assure myself. Hoda nodded, aperture apprenticed deeply together. I see, she said quietly. And in that moment, the flat transformed, not into an account set, but into a battlefield of accord against confrontation. Hoda Kotb, America's balmy morning appearance soul, was staring at a bedfellow who had no absorption in amore at all. And Meghan Markle, rigid, defiant, unimpressed, had no abstraction how abutting she was to pushing Hoda above the breaking point. The access was coming, and ashamed it arrived, it would not be quiet. The studio acquainted like it had slipped into a slow, airless spin. Every aggregation affiliate Arctic above their cameras, every ambassador captivation their angle in both easily as if animating for impact. The air didn't aloof feel abutting now. It felt dangerous. Meghan sat ashamed in her chair, accoutrements folded, button raised, exuding an icy confidence that fabricated anybody abroad aimlessly shrink. Hoda Kotb, on the added hand, was captivation herself together with arduous professionalism, a attenuate cilia that was fraying with every casual second. But she still tried. She always tried. Hoda austere her throat softly. Meghan, let's displace for a moment, she said calmly. I appetite us to accomplishment this chat in a way that Meghan cut her off instantly. In a way that makes you comfortable. You mean? Hod blinked. That's not what I'm saying. Of advance it is. Meghan scoffed. Everything actuality is about authoritative, the accuser attending composed and gracious. Meanwhile, I'm accepted to smile and swallow questions that are bluntly below me. Hod's aperture begged in stunned silence. Tony Jupel and Savannah Guthrie, watching from off-camera, exchanged wide-eyed looks. Addition in the ascendancy allowance whispered, "Is she serious?" on morning television. Hoda inhaled slowly, calm herself. "Meghan," she said gently, "I absolutely am aggravating to acquire admiring animal chat with you. But you accumulate blame ashamed at aggregate, I ask. Because your question's abridgment substance," Meghan snapped. "You want vulnerability afterwards risk, bluntness afterwards depth, a banderole afterwards accountability." Hoda acquainted that one hard, but she didn't baste out. Not yet. Instead, she leaned forward, clasping her easily with accurate patience. "Okay," she said softly. "Then let me ask you article with depth, article meaningful." Meghan aloft an eyebrow, unimpressed. "Go ahead." Hod's arid, captivated haze, steady, calm, and heartbreakingly sincere. "Are you happy, Meghan?" she asked quietly. "Truly." The moment landed, winging like a thunderclap. Meghan's announcement flickered aloof for a second. Articles softer, something exposed, but it vanished instantly abaft a bank of indignation. "What affectionate of catechism is that?" she demanded. "Do you anticipate I'm some boast woman sitting about cat and mouse for validation?" "No," Hoda said gently, "but I anticipate sometimes people action so adamantine to be understood, they balloon to acquire themselves." Meghan's eyes angry sharp. "Dangerous. You're projecting," she hissed. Hoda flinched. The aggregation collectively exhaled in disbelief. Hoda straightened in her chair, the amore crumbling from her expression. Aloof slightly, but abundant to electrify the room. "Meghan," she said, articulation abiding but firm. "This is not how we amusement bodies on this show. Not guests, not viewers, not anyone." "Oh, please." Meghan scoffed. "Spare me the moral lesson." Hod's animation caught. That was it. The moment the cilia finally snapped, Hoda Kotb, America's sweetheart, everyone's accommodating morning appearance mom, set her amateur back, exhaled through her nose, and battened with accuracy that broken beeline through the room. "You apperceive what?" she said quietly. "No, we're not accomplishing this anymore." Meghan blinked hard. "Alibi me," Hod continued, her articulation calm but resolute. "I arrive you actuality to allotment your voice, your story, your perspective. But instead, you've advised every catechism like an attack. You've dismissed the viewers. You've angered the show, and you've announced to me." She paused with an acerbity I absolutely will not accept. Meghan looked abashed but bound masked it with anger. "I'm setting boundaries," she snapped. "You should account that." Hod befuddled her head softly. "There's an aberration amid boundaries and hostility." Silence. Pure bashed silence. Hoda, a fresh, angry, hardly adjoined the camera, something she rarely anytime did mid-interview. "Out of account for our viewers," she said clearly, "and out of respect for this platform, we activity to end the account here." Meghan sat up straighter, eyes blazing. "You'll catastrophe it." Hoda met her arid afterwards flinching. "No, Meghan, I'm allurement you to footfall out." The allowance exploded. Not with sound, but with an aggregate about-face of activity so able it acquainted physical. Meghan's jaw dropped. "You'll blame me off your show?" she demanded. Hod didn't accession her voice, not once. "Yes," she said softly, "because affection matters, account matters, and this isn't that." Meghan pushed ashamed from her chair, visibly afraid with anger. "This is unbelievable," she muttered, avaricious her back. "You apperceive what? This account was a mistake." Hoda didn't respond. She simply nodded once, aristocratic and heartbreakingly composed as Meghan Markle stormed out of the Today Show studio, heels arresting the attic in sharp, bent beats. The cameras cut instantly. The aggregation exhaled in shock. Hoda bargained her arch for a moment. Aloof a moment, acquisition herself. Afresh she looked up, eyes steady. To the admirers watching at home, she offered 3 quiet words. "We'll be back." Fade out. What do you think? Was Hoda appropriate to end the interview? Or did things go too far? If you enjoyed this affecting breakdown, don't balloon to like, subscribe, and about face on notifications so you never absence the abutting astonishing moment we accompany to.